2 months before I was due to give birth, my life shattered in the most unimaginable way. I was sitting in the living room, gently rubbing my swollen belly, dreaming about the moment I'd finally hold my baby in my arms, when he walked in with a calmness that made my blood run cold. "I want a divorce," he said, his voice strangely steady. I couldn't even process the words. I looked up at him, shocked and trembling. "Why? Why now?" I whispered, my heart pounding. He didn't hesitate. "I love someone else. I can't stay with you anymore." My stomach dropped. 2 months. 2 months before my due date, and he was leaving me for another woman. My mind went blank. The man I trusted, the man I had planned my future with, was walking away while I was carrying our child. I felt betrayed, abandoned, and terrified all at once. Tears welled up, but I didn't cry in front of him. I had learned long ago that he thrived on control and weakness. I refused to give him that satisfaction. I drew in a shaky breath and said quietly, "If that's what you want, I'll sign the papers. But remember, life has a way of teaching lessons." He looked surprised, maybe even a little annoyed. He expected me to beg, to plead, to cry on my knees. But I stayed calm. I had always believed that true strength is quiet, and in that moment, I realized I had more strength than he ever imagined. The next days were unbearable. The house felt empty and cold, though it was filled with our memories. Friends tried to console me, but no words could erase the sting of betrayal. I began to see the world differently. This wasn't the end. It was a turning point. I had a choice: break down and let this destroy me, or rise stronger and protect the life growing inside me. And I chose strength. I focused on my health, my baby, and myself. Every doctor's visit, every kick of the baby, every quiet moment of reflection reminded me that I was not powerless. My husband's betrayal did not define me. My resilience did. And slowly, I began to imagine a life where I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The real story, the part that would shock him and everyone who doubted me, was about to unfold. If you want to see what I did next that completely shocked him, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You won't believe what happens next. The days after his shocking announcement felt like a blur. I moved through them like a ghost, carrying the weight of betrayal in one hand and the life of my unborn child in the other. Friends and family offered comfort, but no words could erase the cold reality. The man I had loved and trusted was leaving me for someone else, and there was nothing I could do to stop him. Yet, amidst the fear and heartbreak, a quiet determination began to grow inside me. I realized that my baby didn't deserve a mother who crumbled at the first sign of pain. I had to be strong, not just for me, but for the tiny life I was about to bring into this world. The night I went into labor, panic tried to creep in. The contractions were sharp, relentless, and terrifying. My husband was nowhere to be found, busy perhaps with his new love, leaving me alone in the most critical moment of my life. But the fear I felt was tempered by a strange kind of courage. I reminded myself, I am not powerless. I am alive. I am about to bring life into this world. Hours passed, each one stretching endlessly, until finally I felt the first cry of my baby. The moment the nurse placed my newborn in my arms, all the pain, all the fear, all the betrayal melted into something I could hardly describe. Tears streamed down my face, but they were tears of strength, of hope, and of unconditional love. In that instant, I realized something powerful. My happiness, my worth, and my future were not tied to a man who chose someone else over me. The life in my arms was a reminder that I could endure, I could overcome, and I could rise above betrayal. As I looked into my baby's eyes, a plan began to form in my mind. I would not let my husband's choices define me. I would build a life filled with love, respect, and success, where his absence would mean nothing to my joy. I would prove, not to him, but to myself, that I could thrive despite everything he had done. And so, amidst sleepless nights, feedings, and endless diapers, I began laying the foundation for a new life. I discovered an inner strength I didn't know I had. Every smile of my baby, every small victory I achieved for us became a testament to my resilience. I knew the road ahead would be challenging. I knew I would face moments of doubt, moments of sadness, but I also knew that nothing could break me if I stayed focused on what truly mattered: my child, my future, and my newfound independence. Want to see how I handled my husband and his mistress after the birth? Don't miss the next. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel now to follow this dramatic journey. Just a week after giving birth, my life took another unexpected twist. My husband, thinking he could flaunt his new happiness, had the audacity to groom his mistress to the hospital. He probably expected tears, begging, or desperation from me, but what he found was something he wasn't prepared for: calmness, dignity, and strength. As they entered the room, I smiled politely, holding my newborn in my arms. The mistress tried to exude charm, speaking about how happy they were, as if announcing their joy would somehow hurt me. But instead of fear or sorrow, I felt clarity. Their happiness, built on my betrayal, was fragile. They were trying to assert dominance, to show me that they had won, but I refused to play that game. My husband glanced at me nervously, maybe expecting a dramatic breakdown. I held his gaze calmly and said nothing. My silence alone spoke louder than any words could. I focused on my baby, cooing softly and laughing at the little movements, showing that my joy didn't depend on him. It was in that quiet moment, holding my child, that I realized something profound. True power doesn't come from manipulation or control. True power comes from self-respect, resilience, and the ability to rise above betrayal. I didn't need to fight or argue. I only needed to live my truth. The mistress tried again, attempting to belittle me by commenting on how hard it must be to be a single mother. I smiled politely and said, "It's hard, yes, but it's also beautiful. I wouldn't trade this for anything." Her face turned pale. My words struck her like a mirror reflecting the emptiness of her own life. Meanwhile, my husband's confidence wavered. He had assumed I would crumble, that I would beg him to stay. Instead, I was thriving in the very situation he thought would destroy me. The power had shifted silently but unmistakably. That day, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not waste my energy on anger or revenge. Instead, I would focus on my child, my future, and my happiness. Every small step I took in building my new life would be a reminder that betrayal can be the start of strength, not the end of it. By the time they left, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Their presence no longer threatened me. I had faced the confrontation with grace and calm, and it had strengthened my resolve. I realized that the true revenge wouldn't come from anger or confrontation. It would come from living a life so full, so joyful, and so independent that they would realize what they had lost. If you want to see the secret plan I started building while they underestimated me, don't miss the next. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel now. This story is just getting started. Months passed since that humiliating hospital encounter, and my ex-husband continued with his new life, convinced I was broken and powerless. But what he didn't realize was that I had started quietly building my own world, one where I held all the control. While he flaunted his relationship and tried to show off his freedom, I focused on myself and my child. I began working on a small online business from home, using my creativity and skills that I had once put aside to care for him. Every order I completed, every new client I gained, felt like a victory, not just financially, but emotionally. I was reclaiming my independence, one step at a time. I also started reconnecting with friends and family I had neglected, people who genuinely cared about me and my baby. Their support became my strength. I joined parenting communities, shared experiences, and realized I wasn't alone. More importantly, I was learning to trust myself and my instincts again. At the same time, I maintained the perfect calm when interacting with him. He would occasionally try to check in, maybe to see if I had fallen apart, but I greeted him with polite indifference. Every smile I gave, every calm word I spoke, was a quiet reminder that his absence had not weakened me, it had strengthened me. The more I invested in my new life, the more I noticed the cracks in his world. He had believed that leaving me meant gaining freedom and happiness, but his life with his mistress was far from perfect. Arguments, stress, and dissatisfaction began to seep into their relationship, while I was steadily growing stronger, more independent, and more confident. I kept this transformation to myself. I didn't announce it, I didn't brag. I let my actions speak silently and powerfully. Each small step I took was part of a bigger plan. Not revenge in the traditional sense, but a way to prove that betrayal doesn't define a person's destiny. I was shaping a future where my child and I thrived, while he continued to realize what he had lost. I often reflected on that moment he left, that day he walked out thinking he had won. Now I understood something he would never comprehend. Leaving someone doesn't destroy them, it reveals their true strength, and I was just beginning to show the world mine. With each passing day, I grew more certain that the next time he saw me, it wouldn't be as the broken woman he had abandoned, it would be as a force he had underestimated, a woman thriving despite betrayal, a mother and an independent human being. Reveals the day he finally realized he had lost me forever, and his reaction will shock you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel to see the next dramatic twist in this story. It had been months since my husband had walked away, leaving me to face the final weeks of pregnancy alone. I had grown stronger, more independent, and fully devoted to my child and my new life. But I didn't expect the universe to stage a moment that would leave him speechless. One evening, he decided to visit, perhaps hoping to see if I had crumbled under the weight of betrayal and motherhood. He walked through the door with the familiar arrogance, probably imagining he would see a desperate, broken woman begging him to stay. What he saw instead stopped him in his tracks. I was sitting comfortably on the couch, my baby in my arms, laughing softly as he played with his tiny fingers. The room was warm, filled with the love and peace he had never nurtured. My home was no longer a place of tension and fear. It was a sanctuary. I looked up at him, calm, confident, and completely unshaken. He froze. I could see the surprise and, for the first time, perhaps even fear in his eyes. The man who had thought he could break me realized he had misjudged everything. His new mistress's presence in his life could never have given him this genuine happiness, this sense of fulfillment. I didn't speak harshly. I didn't need to. I simply said, "You may have left, but I didn't leave myself. I've built a life I'm proud of, a life full of love and a life where I am enough for me and my child. Your absence doesn't hurt me anymore. I've moved on." The impact of my words was instantaneous. I saw the color drain from his face, the arrogance replaced by shock, then regret. For the first time, he realized that leaving me hadn't freed him. It had made him irrelevant in the story of my life. He had believed he was the one walking away victorious, but now the tables had turned silently, perfectly. He tried to speak, to explain, to defend himself, but I shook my head gently. There's nothing left to say. You made your choice, and I made mine. I chose strength, love, and a life without betrayal. That's the difference between us. For the first time, he understood that my happiness wasn't dependent on him. He had underestimated me, just as he had underestimated the bond I now shared with my child. His departure had been the spark that ignited my courage and determination, shaping me into the woman he could never control again. As he left that evening, I felt no bitterness, only peace. I had won, not by hurting him, but by rising above the pain, building a life of love, and showing him the power of resilience. Reveal the ultimate move I made that left him and everyone else stunned. Don't miss it. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel now to see how this story takes an even more dramatic turn. Months had passed since the day he realized he had lost me, but I wasn't finished yet. While he believed he had walked away unscathed, I had been quietly preparing a move that would leave him and everyone else completely stunned. I started by building a life that radiated independence, strength, and success. My small online business, which I had started in secret, was flourishing. Every sale, every positive message from customers, every milestone achieved felt like a quiet victory. But I wanted more. I wanted a moment that would show the world and him that leaving me didn't destroy me, it empowered me. I planned a small gathering at my home, inviting friends, family, and a few people from our social circle who had witnessed the drama unfold. It wasn't a show or a revenge scheme, it was a celebration of my new life. I wanted everyone to see that despite betrayal, heartbreak, and challenges, I had risen. On the day of the gathering, I dressed elegantly but simply, exuding confidence. My baby, now a few months older, was the shining star of the room, radiating joy and innocence. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, warmth, and love, an atmosphere my ex-husband had never contributed to. And then he appeared. Curiosity and maybe pride brought him, thinking he might still have a place in this life. But as he walked through the door, he froze. He saw not the broken, desperate woman he had abandoned, but a mother, a businesswoman, a force of strength, thriving and radiant. I smiled politely, introducing him to my friends and family, who all greeted him warmly, yet with subtle acknowledgement of my journey. He realized immediately that nothing in this room required his presence, that I was complete without him. The look on his face said it all: shock, regret, and a deep understanding that he had miscalculated. He had thought leaving me for another woman would give him freedom and happiness. Instead, it had allowed me to build a life full of independence, respect, and genuine joy, while his own choices had left him lacking. I didn't need to say a word to him. The contrast was clear. I had taken betrayal and turned it into motivation, transforming pain into strength. The ultimate revenge wasn't humiliation or anger. It was thriving in a life he could no longer touch or control. By the end of the evening, I felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything I had ever known. I had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and abandonment, yet I emerged victorious, not because of him, but because of my resilience, my love for my child, and my refusal to let anyone define my worth. The next video reveals the moment he tries to come back, and my response leaves everyone speechless. Don't miss it. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel now to see the shocking twist in this story. Months had gone by since my ultimate move, the gathering where I had shown the world and him that I had risen stronger than ever. Life was finally settling into a rhythm of happiness, love, and independence. My baby thrived, my business grew, and my friends and family became my unwavering support system. I thought I had reached the peak of my newfound strength until he tried to come back. One late afternoon, there was a knock at my door. My heart skipped a beat, not with fear, but with curiosity. I opened the door to find him standing there, eyes wide, voice shaking slightly. "Can we talk?" he asked, his usual arrogance replaced by hesitation and, dare I say, regret. I invited him in, calmly placing my baby in a safe spot while I faced him. I could feel the tension in the air. He had believed that walking away would give him freedom and control, but now he was on unfamiliar ground. He was seeing the woman he once left, confident, radiant, and completely independent. He tried to speak first, stumbling over words, searching for an apology or a way back into my life. I made a mistake. I want us to try again, he said, desperation creeping into his tone. I paused, looking at him with a calm that surprised even me. I had anticipated this moment, and I had prepared my response carefully. You made your choice, I said softly, yet firmly. You left me when I needed you most, and you chose someone else over your family. I didn't crumble, and I didn't beg. I didn't need to because I didn't depend on you for my happiness. I built a life without you, and it's full of love, joy, and respect, things you can't take away. He looked shocked, as if my words had finally pierced the bubble of arrogance he had lived in. He opened his mouth again, but I held up a hand. There's nothing left to discuss. You had your chance, and you lost it. My happiness isn't tied to you anymore. You underestimated me, and now you see the result. In that moment, I realized something powerful. The ultimate victory isn't revenge or confrontation. The ultimate victory is reclaiming your life, your peace, and your joy, and refusing to let anyone take it from you. I had faced heartbreak, betrayal, and abandonment, but I had risen stronger, and no amount of regret from him could change that. He left that day defeated, silent, and finally understanding that the woman he had abandoned was now untouchable, thriving in every sense of the word. I returned to my baby, smiling, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace and empowerment. The final part reveals my ultimate triumph and how my life completely transformed after betrayal. Don't miss it. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel now for the shocking conclusion. Years had passed since the day he walked away, leaving me to face the last months of pregnancy alone. What had started as heartbreak and betrayal had transformed into an incredible journey of strength, resilience, and self-discovery. The woman who once cried in silence had grown into someone unstoppable, and life had a way of rewarding her courage. My baby, now a healthy, joyful child, was the center of my world. Every smile, every laugh, every milestone became a reminder that I had survived, not just for myself, but for the life I brought into this world. Motherhood was challenging, yes, but it was also empowering. It taught me patience, unconditional love, and the true meaning of strength. Meanwhile, my small business, which I had started quietly in the months after the betrayal, had grown beyond my wildest dreams. Clients trusted me, friends celebrated my success, and every accomplishment became a personal victory. I was no longer defined by someone else's choices. I had created my own path, my own happiness, and my own success. As for my ex-husband, he remained a faint memory, a lesson in trust and resilience. He had underestimated me at every turn, believing that leaving me would destroy my life. Instead, it had given me clarity, motivation, and purpose. His absence became the catalyst for my transformation, and every step I took without him was a reminder that I was in control of my own destiny. Life had finally come full circle. I found peace in solitude, strength in independence, and joy in love that was genuine and unconditional. I had learned that the greatest revenge is not to hurt the one who betrayed you, but to live your life so fully, so beautifully, that their absence becomes meaningless. I often reflect on that day he asked for a divorce. At the time, it felt like the end of everything. Now, I see it as the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where I chose myself, my child, and my happiness above all else. Betrayal, heartbreak, and disappointment had been my teachers, and I had passed every test with courage and grace. Today, I am proud, not just for the life I have built, but for the woman I have become, a woman who faced betrayal, who endured heartbreak, and who rose stronger than anyone could imagine. A woman who knows her worth, who embraces her power, and who refuses to let anyone's choices define her future. If my story inspired you, hit like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Remember, Real strength comes from rising after betrayal and creating a life full of love, joy, and independence. Don't let anyone dim your light. Your story is just beginning.